Now, do you believe that a ban on weapons can reduce weapon-related deaths in the long run? The answer is no. First of all, what is a ban? A ban is a prohibition on the total legal access of an item except for the ones issued to specific individuals. So, in this case, the banning of the use of a weapon on warfare specifically is not one of them, and the prohibiting underage people from buying weapons is also not one of them. So why doesn't a ban work in reality? Now, reason number one, the original purpose cannot dictate the use. Historically, many things were invented for one purpose and ended up being used in other purposes. Now, weapons are generally invented to kill or to disable someone, but that doesn't mean you always have to use them to do so when you have got weapons. Now, in fact, activities like drama, hunting, practicing martial arts, self-defense, home defense, and running historical museums are all generally peaceful things that people can do using weapons. But on the other hand, common everyday items like brakes, baseball bats, and spiny palm leaves have also been used as weapons by riots. Now, reason number two is that there is no such a trend. The trend where the higher the weapon ownership, the more weapon-related death simply does not exist. According to an international study conducted in the year 2007, it was discovered that the top 11 nations with the highest legal gun ownership and the top 11 nations with the most annual gun-related deaths are totally different countries. As you can see in this graph, with the red line representing per capita gun ownership and the blue lines representing per capita gun-related death, there is no direct correlation between those two. Where the country known to have the lowest per capita gun ownership, Algeria, actually had more per capita gun-related deaths than the US, which was the country known to have the highest per capita gun ownership. It indicates clearly that the more weapon ownerships doesn't result in more weapon-related death. For reason number three, most people who owns weapons uses them in a relatively peaceful way, and people who uses weapons to kill others only make up a minority of all the weapon owners in the world. The majority of weapon owners are not violent, and this is quite obvious in countries that are relatively safe. For example, in France, in average 1 out of every 543,000 privately owned guns was used in gun homicide. It's still true even for countries that has a relatively high crime rate. Let's take Trinidad and Tobago as an example, where 1 out of every 58 privately owned guns was used in gun homicide. That still consists of a minority. The fourth reason, if you ban the weapon, then some people would simply create those so-called illegal weapons using legal materials. Remember this, creativity is what makes humans successful. For example, it is illegal to own metal knuckle dusters in Canada, but some creative Canadians simply built them using other materials like wood or plastic and seemingly bypassed the law. And also, cases of people smuggling weapons or building weapons illegally and then using them to commit crimes have happened many times in history. Real criminals are criminals because they don't obey laws. Now, for the final reason, let's go back to the basics, is that there are ways to reduce weapon-related death that doesn't sacrifice people's freedom to own and create weapons. For example, education, providing more job opportunities, and getting rid of poverty are all ways that can possibly reduce weapon-related death in the long run. In conclusion, we just discovered that banning weapons are generally useless, and they're kind of immoral to people due to the fact that they are more likely to stop people from doing generally harmless things rather than reduce crimes. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our video, then please feel free to like and share it. in the long run. Now for the final point, let's go back to the basics, is that there are ways to reduce weapon-related death without sacrificing people's freedom to create and own weapons. For example, education, getting rid of poverty, and providing more job opportunities are all ways that can possibly reduce weapon-related death in the long run. Now in conclusion, we've just discovered that banning weapons are generally useless and kind of immoral to people. Yet, instead of stopping people from committing crimes, they are more likely to stop people from doing generally harmless things.